Hello everyone, welcome back to Annie's MLT. When a doctor suspects malaria, an infection, or even a blood disorder, how do lab professionals actually see what is happening inside the sample? Because blood cells, bacteria, and parasites are so tiny that we cannot see them with our eyes, that is where one of the most important instruments in the lab comes in, the microscope. So, in today's video, we are going to understand what is microscope, why is it needed, where it is used in medical laboratory technology, and why every MLT student must understand it properly. By the end of this video, you will have a clear basic idea of the microscope and why it is such an important part of lab science. So, let's begin. What is a microscope? A microscope is an instrument used to see very small objects clearly by making them appear larger. In simple words, it helps us observe things that are too tiny to be seen properly with the naked eye. For example, if I show you a blood smear slide, you cannot study red blood cells or white blood cells just by looking at it directly. You need magnification. You need clarity. And that is exactly what a microscope gives us. So, the simplest definition you can remember is this: a microscope is an instrument that magnifies tiny objects so they can be seen clearly. Now, the next question is very important. Why do we need a microscope in the first place? Because many things that are important in medicine are microscopic. That means they are too small to be seen properly with our eyes. Think about this: red blood cells, white blood cells, bacteria, parasites, cells in urine or tissue samples. All of these can give us important clues about disease, but only if we can actually see them. For example, if a patient has fever and the doctor suspects malaria, the lab may examine a blood smear under the microscope to look for the parasite. If a patient has burning urination, the lab may examine urine under the microscope to look for pus cells, RBCs, or crystals. So, the microscope is not just for seeing something small, it helps us detect disease, study samples, and support diagnosis. So, basically, whenever the sample contains tiny structures that matter for diagnosis, the microscope becomes useful. Now, let's connect this to medical laboratory technology. As MLT students, you are not learning the microscope just as a theory topic. You are learning one of the most important practical tools used in different sections of the laboratory. Let's see where it is used. Hematology. In hematology, a microscope is used to examine blood smears. It helps us study the appearance of red blood cells, different types of white blood cells, platelets, sometimes even blood parasites. So, when we want to study blood cells, morphology, or look for abnormalities in a blood smear, the microscope is essential. Microbiology. In microbiology, the microscope helps us observe microorganisms. For example, after staining a smear, bacteria may be seen under the microscope. It also helps in examining fungal elements in some specimens. So, in microbiology, the microscope gives the first visual clue about infection. Urine and stool examination. In routine lab practice, urine and stool are also examined microscopically. In urine, we may look for pus cells, red blood cells, epithelial cells, crystals, casts. In stool, we may look for ova, cysts, and parasites. In pathology and histopathology, microscope is used to study tissues and cells. It helps in observing cell arrangement, tissue structure, abnormal changes in cells. So, whether it is blood, urine, stool, or tissue, the microscope has a role almost everywhere in the lab. Now, here is the most important point for you as a student. The microscope is not just one chapter in your syllabus. It is a foundation instrument in MLT. If your microscope basics are strong, many other subjects become easier. So, before learning advanced laboratory tests, you must first be comfortable with the microscope. Before we end, let's revise today's topic quickly. Today we learned a microscope is an instrument that helps us see tiny objects clearly by magnifying them. It is needed because many medically important structures like blood cells, bacteria, and parasites are too small to be seen with the naked eye. It is used in hematology, microbiology, urine, and stool examination. For MLT students, the microscope is a basic and essential laboratory instrument. So, students, this was your basic introduction to the microscope. In the next video, we will move to the next topic in this series and learn about the types and parts of the microscope. If you found this class helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Anis MLT.